Many of you are likely familiar with the Dr. Robert Malone episode of the Joe Rogan podcast, where he mentions mass formation psychosis. He was using this to refer to a kind of hypnosis that enthralls a population, such as what happened in Nazi Germany, and what he says is happening now with these COVID restrictions, namely in blue states. Right now, there's a wave of fact-check articles claiming it's not true, it's debunked, even though there's no debunking actually going on. And many people are acting like it's something he just made up. It reminded me of that post from Joe Rogan that he just posted recently. You may have seen it. I think it's important. I think it's relevant. In this clip, you have Joe Rogan, where he gave his own statement on when he got COVID. And you can see that he is peachy and healthy looking with bright, rosy red cheeks. I'm being somewhat facetious. But then the top clip is from CNN, where Joe looks gray and sickly. And the shading on his eyes and his skin makes him look like he's dying. It's amazing. Joe posted this. It shows side by side the difference between what CNN had posted and what he had posted on Instagram. Some people had claimed it's all a misunderstanding because, Joe had just grabbed the wrong clip on PC and different monitors that just looked different. But that makes no sense because we're watching both of these clips side by side on Instagram, on mobile. It should look the same, right? They're lying. We know they're lying. And I have to assume they know we know they're lying. So I was thinking about what's going on with mass formation psychosis. And I was reminded of this post from September 10th, 2021. No evidence video color was manipulated in CNN news segment. Claim CNN altered the color in Joe Rogan's Instagram video to make him look sickly. The AP, the Associated Press, says it's not true. So I started thinking about this because I saw that story on mass formation psychosis. And I thought to myself, anyone who follows Joe, his millions, his legions of fans, his 11 million listeners per episode, can clearly see the color is different. But you know what? I'm all about fact checking. I remember when CNN put the clip up and we all noticed Joe looked gray and sickly. So what I did was I actually went to the original post from Joe and the original video from CNN, and I displayed it on different monitors and mobile to see if maybe that's what they were talking about. Not true. It's a lie. Saying that the monitors made it look different. And sure enough, on the exact same screen from two different sources, I could see that CNN, their video, for whatever reason, makes Joe look sickly and gray. The official explanation from most people is that when you watch the video on PC, it looks different. But that doesn't make sense because Joe took the CNN video and his original video side by side, and you're watching them on the same screen, on your mobile, on your PC, whatever, and you can clearly see it. So here's what I was thinking. There's no way the AP thinks that people who are fans of Rogan and have seen this are going to believe them, right? Now, hold on. Someone might see that article and it says, let me get the headline again. No evidence video color was manipulated in CNN news segment. Who would know about that to understand the context? Someone who follows Joe Rogan and saw the criticism. And someone who follows Joe Rogan and knows the criticism likely saw the video clip that made him look sick. So who are they trying to convince? I don't know. I honestly don't get it. Unless the goal is just to separate discerning people from stupid people, you have to be a paramount level of stupidity to fall for this stuff. But then no one trusts the AP? Is the AP trying to make sure that regular Americans of average IQ don't trust them? Look at this clip. You mean to tell me, imagine if I put out a video and there's literally a cat on my desk, and I said, there is no cat on my desk. People would be like, I don't understand. I can clearly see it. In fact, he's quite literally petting the cat. But I say something so obviously wrong. The only thing that would happen is people would be like, that was weird. Why was he saying that? Unless he doesn't want us to believe him, that makes no sense. He's not telling the truth. And it must be a lie because he's petting the, you see my point? So this is a tweet I posted in reference to this AP fact check. Mass formation psychosis, an unfounded theory spreading online, suggests millions of people have been hypnotized into believing mainstream ideas to combat COVID-19. Psychology experts say the concept is not supported by evidence. Get the facts, AP. You know what? Let's get the facts. Fact Focus. AP reports unfounded theory used to dismiss COVID measures. They say, an unfounded theory taking root online suggests millions of people have been hypnotized into believing mainstream ideas about COVID-19, including steps to combat it, such as testing and vaccination. In widely shared social media posts this week, efforts to combat the disease have been dismissed with 3 words: mass formation psychosis. Quote, I'm not a scientist, but I'm pretty sure healthy people spending hours in line to get a virus test is mass formation psychosis in action, reads one tweet that was liked more than 22,000 times. I am not here to comment on the merit of tests or COVID. I am not the expert nor scientist. Dr. Robert Malone is an expert and a scientist in some capacities, but he did not make that statement. That's just one tweet. I like how they pull up things that Dr. Malone did not say. The term gained attention after it was floated by Dr. Robert Malone on the Joe Rogan Experience. Malone is a scientist who wants to research mRNA technology, actually discovering saying he invented the entirety of it maybe is an argument, but he is literally the guy who said we can use lipids to transmit genetic information to create RNA and DNA vaccines. So they say, but is now a vocal skeptic of the COVID-19 vaccines. Psychology experts say the concept described by Malone is not supported by evidence and is similar to theories that have long been discredited. Here's a look at the facts. They say, Malone highlighted the unfounded theory. Okay, hold on a minute. Why do they keep saying unfounded theory? That's an opinion statement. Unfounded. It is an opinion statement. If an expert says it is and an expert says it isn't, saying unfounded or founded is an opinion statement. A news organization would not call it such. It would just say theory or hypothesis. They go on to mention what we know. Quote from Malone. When you have a society that has become decoupled from each other and has free-floating anxiety in a sense that things don't make sense, we can't understand it. And then their attention gets focused by a leader or a series of events on one small point, just like hypnosis. They literally become hypnotized and can be led anywhere, Malone said. He claimed such people will not allow the narrative to be questioned. Crediting a professor in Belgium, Malone also said in a December blog post that this mass hypnosis explains millions of people becoming captivated by the dominant narrative concerning the safety and effectiveness of the genetic vaccines. Psychology experts say there is no support for the psychosis theory described by Malone. Let's break down my point from earlier about Joe Rogan clearly having 2 different, the videos being clearly different in Joe's skin tone. It is not a fact check for me to find 5 people who agree with me and then claim the experts agree with me, thus the other guy is wrong. That is not how fact-checking works. So what the ever-loving is this? Only the stupidest people in the world would fall for this. If you're someone who listens to Joe Rogan, you like and you trust Joe Rogan. If a guest, Dr. Robert Malone, is being defended by Joe and is explaining his credentials, you'd likely say this guy's an expert. He must know something. For the AP to then say we've selectively chosen this group of experts to say it's not true, why would anyone believe you? Psychology experts say there's no basis. Quote, to my knowledge, there's no evidence whatsoever for this concept, says Jay Van Bavel, an assistant professor of psychology and neuroscience at New York University, who recently co-authored a book on group identities. Van Bavel said he has never encountered the phrase mass formation psychosis in his years of research, nor could he find it in any peer-reviewed literature. Could it be that Dr. Robert Malone is just giving name to something that exists? Yeah. So hold on. An assistant professor of psychology said because he's not familiar with that phrase, it's not real? There's no support for it? What if we just called it something else? What you gotta understand is that Dr. Malone may be speaking candidly or colloquially when he says mass formation psychosis. I don't believe he ever came out and said there is a syndrome that has been named such in peer-reviewed journals. I think he just called it this. He's called it mass hypnosis in the past. The term does not appear in the American Psychological Association's Dictionary of Psychology. Isn't this fascinating? Richard McNally, a professor of clinical psychology at Howard University, wrote in an email that people who support COVID-19 vaccines and public health guidance are not delusional. Rather, they are fully responsive to the arguments and evidence adduced by the relevant scientific experts. All right, I have a question for all y'all. If New York has a vaccine mandate, if New York politicians are triple vaxxed, and New York is experiencing record-breaking COVID numbers, just please, I would ask for an explanation as to how your policies what's the goal of your policies? I'll put it that way. That's it. That's it. If the U.S. is experiencing record-breaking COVID, I'd like to ask about any of the COVID policies put forth by any of these states. Now, for a while, we saw in Florida, they had some of the lowest rates. In the southern states, they still had high rates, but lower than others. I would like an explanation on the blue state COVID policies. That's all. Now, you can call it mass formation psychosis. I say that the left is a cult. It is a cult. You see the video I posted on Instagram? I posted it more than once, where everyone's got their hands in the air and they're like, I will use my voice to help my neighbors. It is insane. It's a cult. I've called it a chaotic destructive force. If Dr. Malone wants to call it mass formation psychosis, well then, whatever. Let me bring you to the juicy part. The juicy part is this. Responding to this tweet was a tweet from Michael Malice from Fortune magazine. Commentary. Donald Trump is a master of hypnotism, how he used the power on America and then himself. It's really fascinating. When Donald Trump was in office, you had these articles claiming he was hypnotizing people. When Dr. Malone says a person can hypnotize a population, it sounds like he was saying something very similar to this. Now they're claiming this story from Fortune must not be true. Now, to be fair, I don't think they use mass formation psychosis in this article. But from September 27, 2020, they write, among other things, Donald Trump's a potent hypnotist, so reveals Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, the most brilliantly mordant cartoonist since Charles Adams left the building. Adams presciently predicted Trump's 2016 victory. He told Reason over a year before the election, a lot of the things the media were reporting as a sort of random insults and bluster, and just Trump being Trump, looked to me like a lot of deep technique that I recognize from the fields of hypnosis and persuasion. I am recognized by the world's leading hypnosis professional association, the 14,000 plus member National Guild of Hypnotists, as an elite, top-ranked, non-clinical hypnotist like Adams. In recognizing Trump's serious hypnotic power early on, I too tipped my hat to this businessman turned politician. But here's my big reveal. Trump may be too gifted at hypnosis for his own good. Wow. Mass hypnosis. So powerful, it was actually bad for Donald Trump. And now they would come out and tell you that mass formation psychosis isn't real. From Unheard, mass formation psychosis gets a warning from Google. Take a look at this. It looks like the results are changing quickly. This is from January 5th. This is before the AP put out their fact check claiming it wasn't real on January 8th. The AP's only sourcing as to why it's not real is because we asked some experts and they said it wasn't. All right. How about I go and ask a bunch of experts and then claim it is? Couldn't I? What about 14,000 hypnotists? Okay, hypnotists aren't clinical psychologists. What if I interview 10 psychologists who say it is real? Could I then claim fact check false? AP News writes fake news? Well, you know the establishment works. They would not accept that. Here's what we have from Unheard. They say, many more people... yes. Mass formation psychosis gets a warning from Google. Robert Malone mentioned it on Rogan, so the search engine acted. Many more people turn to Google for information about the world than use Twitter. So when Google censors ideas, the societal impact is potentially very wide-reaching. It looks like these results are changing quickly, a notice explained. If this topic is new, it can sometimes take time for results to be added by reliable sources. Reliable sources. The term is mass formation psychosis, which we understand. They're going to say, according to Professor Matthias Desmet of the psychology faculty at Ghent University, whose talk was extensively discussed by Rogan and Malone, a generalized sense of anxiety leaves a population in a hypnotic state, vulnerable to suggestion. It isn't a new idea. Mass formation draws on work by the 19th century writer Gustav Bonn, commonly credited as the father of crowd psychology. Le Bon was avidly read by Lenin, Hitler, and Mussolini, and became a huge influence on Louis Bernays. Freud's nephew and the inventor of modern public relations. Talking about mass formation seems to be a freelance venture by Professor Desmet, whose published work focuses on psychotherapy for the individual, not social psychology. But it is not hard to see why it was seized upon by a spectrum of people broadly opposed to pandemic interventions, ranging at its extremes to conspiracy theorists. Before Malone promoted it, it had been aired on a number of podcasts. Besides the very obvious point that Google is editorializing and therefore imperiling its safe harbor privileges, a point frequently made by former President Trump, this latest intervention raises two questions. You may think, as I do, that using individual psychological explanations to account for the behavior of a crowd is a fundamental category error. A crowd is not a person. He goes on to say, studying how communications media can be used to totalitarian ends used to be the prime liberal concern. It was the motivation behind the establishment of the Radio Research Project in the 1930s by the Rockefeller Foundation. Hitler had risen to power through radio, using it to hypnotic effect. So the project invited researchers to consider the role played by new media and how Hitler had exploited it. The point here is, a few days ago, you have someone citing experts. You have someone citing very serious historical experts looking back at the rise of fascism and saying this played a big role. Today, if you go to Google, you get this. From Business Insider, a scientist made unfounded COVID-19 mass formation psychosis claims. Then you have the News and Observer, fact focus, unfounded theory. You have Reuters, fact check, no evidence of pandemic mass formation psychosis. Forbes, what is mass formation psychosis? Robert Malone makes unfounded claim. Then you get Unheard. Then you start getting a lot of other sources saying, what is it? Can you break free? Salon even says, are they experiencing it? And that's 4 weeks ago. Mass psychosis. Isn't that interesting? Are they experiencing mass psychosis? Salon, left-wing publication. The number 2 post, of course, is The Spectator. America is in a state of mass formation paralysis. Not quite psychosis. Over at Salon, they wrote this, December 14th, 2021. Is America experiencing mass psychosis? Psychologists say that America is going through what Carl Jung warned would happen eventually. Amazing. What the ever-living is going on? And now I bring it back again to the video from Joe Rogan, looking gray and sick on CNN and looking fine in his Instagram. They have to realize that regular people know they're lying. How stupid do you have to be to Google search this? See a left-wing publication say, psychologists say that America is going through what Carl Jung warned would happen eventually. Is America experiencing mass psychosis? To have numerous outlets saying it's a thing, to have experts saying, what is this thing? To now say, no such thing, not real. It's amazing. The regime is telling you to ignore what you are seeing with your own eyes and ears. So how stupid do you have to be? And then I started to wonder about this. I have no explanation. I have no explanation other than the media thinks you are truly so stupid, so blindly moronic that you can't look at December 14th mass psychosis from Salon, then see Robert Malone say it, then see the media claim it's not real, and not realize you're being lied to. One of the things I pointed out quite a bit in the Trump era was that Trump would read the news, and then the media would come out and claim it was fake. No kidding. TechCrunch wrote an article claiming that hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, Z-Pak or whatever, was showing promise in a study for treating COVID. I don't know if that's true. I'm not a doctor. I do know that it was reported by TechCrunch, a prominent mainstream source. And then Donald Trump comes on and goes, did you see this study? It's looking pretty good that there's a study here. And then the media came out and said Trump pushes dangerous drug cocktail or whatever. And I'm like, but wait, TechCrunch reported this study in France. Okay. And they went on to claim later that they were like, well, there may be studies going on. There are clinical trials for ivermectin and all that stuff, but Trump shouldn't be encouraging it. So that means you come out in the media and claim it's lies. But there really were these studies. Not all the studies are definitive I'm not here to tell you whether it is or isn't. I'm just saying Trump would read the news, then say, you know what I read in the news? I saw this. Then the media would just be like, nope, Trump lied. But what? I don't have the answers, man. I don't get it. Are they trying desperately to destroy all credibility in the media? Okay. Or is it just that the media is nothing but a bunch of psychotic morons? Could it be that they are not evil? They're just stupid? I don't even know if evil makes sense, because here's my problem. Here's my point. The Joe Rogan thing drives it home. I cannot grasp this. Think about it. You see the video with your own eyes, and you're like, yeah, clearly they made Joe look sick, or it's making Joe look sick. I don't know why or how, but it's there. And then the AP says there's no evidence the colors changed. And you're looking at it, you're like, but I can see the colors changed. I can literally see they're different videos, or the same video with different colors. How are you going to tell me I'm not looking at that? Maybe it's an attempt to take all of the stupidest people and wrap them in a cult. That's how you do it. Reminds me of Star Trek. How many lights are there, Picard? You know this one. How many lights? There are 5. No, there are 4 lights. Trying to tell someone to say that something that is clearly not true is true, and they beat you over the head to where you finally just agree with it. Is that it? Is that what they're doing? I don't know. I got no idea. All I can say is, at a certain point, you have to be dumb beyond all recognition, stupid and moronic, to believe what the media is saying. I don't even know what to do with this stuff. I just see these articles and I'm like, it's insane to me. It's a whole new level of absolute insanity. I can't imagine the average person is even that stupid. The average person can see the video of Joe Rogan. The average person would then see the article from the AP and be like, you're liars. And it would just destroy the trust in these institutions. So why bother writing it? Because I'll say it again. Someone who doesn't follow Joe, doesn't know anything about the video, and doesn't understand, like, isn't going to read that article and think anything of it because they don't know what it's talking about. And someone who does follow Joe is going to be like, I can clearly see it with my own eyes. Why would they believe the AP? Unless there are people who know they're being lied to, but just need something desperately to try and convince them to stay where they are. Maybe that's it. Maybe the cult is collapsing, and they're trying to just keep metaphorically drugging the population and giving them their excuse. Just read it. Look, there's no evidence. Like, okay, thank you, please, thank you. Otherwise, I was going to have a nervous breakdown. It's crazy. Whatever. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see y'all then.